It appears that they did it. They actually did it. Florida House is now trying to push a bill that mandates genital checks for transgender girls. And of course, as if transgender youth do not have enough difficulty in their lives, that's just to add another layer of embarrassment to these young people, while we also try to ban them from sports under the guise of fairness. Right. Now, this particular piece of legislation is called the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and it would ban transgender female athletes from competing on women's athletic teams in both high school and college sports. Although there is an exception for transgender male athletes to be able to compete on either team. Interesting. It's so its situation is not even applied equally. It only targets young transgender girls. Interesting. Furthermore, the law states that in cases where a student's biological sex is disputed, whatever that means, the law authorizes schools to require health examinations or documentations from the student's personal health care provider. A dispute regarding a student's sex shall be resolved by the student, school, or institution by requesting that the student shall provide a health examination or consent form or other statement signed by the student's personal health care provider, which must verify the student's biological sex, says the bill, which provides for routine sports physical examination of students' reproductive organs, genetic makeup, or testosterone levels. So basically, simply put, you got the pee police out there that are now going to be checking the genitals of both school, high school, and college age girls if they think that your gender might be in question. If they think that you might be a trans woman, they're going to be able to check you. Again, there are cisgender women and girls who could look a little bit more masculine than your average woman, right? Maybe they worked out a lot. Maybe they didn't develop fully. Maybe they just were born tall. Who knows? I wonder if those same girls are going to be singled out for genital inspections too. The whole thing just seems like all sorts of different levels of fucked up. You know? It just I get the idea of wanting things to be fair. I do. Hey, the thing is it really all that unfair to let transgender girls compete with other cisgender girls? I mean, if you consider what transitioning actually entails, if you're taking, for example, hormones, puberty blockers, things like that, then you're going to learn to lose, as a result of the transition process, muscle mass. And that might put you, or will generally put you, in the same range and level as cisgendered women or girls. But here's the thing, too. You want to talk about fairness. Well, even among cisgender women, there are differences in physical ability, right? Things are never going to be totally 100% fair. You're going to have really tall women or girls versus short girls. Is that unfair? You're going to have people who are more muscular versus those who are a little bit more chubby in shape versus slightly out of shape, people with better lung function, people with stronger hearts. Where do you want to draw the line here? Okay. And so, but the thing is that nobody really talks about the differences between cisgender women and also cisgender men in sports. Right now, they're really focusing on trans women, and it makes you wonder why. Maybe because there's a deep-seated hatred of trans women, or maybe they just don't understand. And here's the thing. The disparity between trans men and trans women is also fairly large in this. I don't think trans men take a half a shit as much as trans women do. And it kind of, again, makes you wonder why. I mean, do cis men see trans women as a trap or something? A threat to their masculinity? Or do they see them as trading their privileged position as a male to be something that they consider to be inferior? Like a female? Are they personally insulted that somebody would want to transition into a female. It feels like there's a lot of insecurity on the part of transphobes and TERFs, you know? And as far as cis women go, there are some that are legitimately afraid of being assaulted by trans people in bathrooms. But that, again, that doesn't actually happen. No, you're far more likely for a trans woman to be assaulted in a bathroom. So that's the issue, okay? And look, the data, and the idea of that, trans people will automatically, trans women will dominate sports. If we allow them to participate, it's just not backed up by any of the data. We just don't have enough proof. And the research that does exist so far does not support the idea of a blanket trans ban on sports. And it's even more cruel, by the way, when you try to apply this ban to kids that just want to play sports in school for fun. Remember, this thing is for fun. Generally, that these trans girls want to play sports as fun activities with friends and teammates for the love of the game. Why is that? Why do we never talk about that? And I think the transphobes and I think the TERFs, they forget about this. This is not professional sports. These kids aren't making millions of dollars off playing. They want to play for fun. And yet, no, we're not only going to make you not, make it so that you can't play. We're also going to subject you to genital checks. And this is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Again, this is school sports like track and basketball. It's not the end of the world if your kid loses to a trans girl, which again doesn't always happen, and vice versa. Same thing. No, this is nothing more than people hating on trans people because they're basically the new group to hate, and that's what it is. They can't go after gay people anymore. No. That's the new culture wars are being waged against the trans. That's what it is. This bill in Florida, which is now headed for the Senate for consideration, is similar to dozens of other laws, which are being considered across the country, introduced by Republicans, that restrict the rights of transgender students. But again, this goes further than the other ones by literally introducing the PP police. LGBTQ plus advocates argue that the legislation is not only discriminatory, but could expose students to physical and sexual abuse as well as trauma. In fact, Andrew Coleman, transgender man, who's a student at Florida State, reportedly said this: "I ask that you read the bill and recognize the threat to privacy and lack of legal protection, potentially facing female athletes. Read this bill and recognize the perpetuating harm this legislation has to kids who just want to live." And that's it, to live their lives. Here's the thing. You got people out there that are still talking about, it's the gay agenda, right? Or the LGBTQ plus agenda. Oh, man. You want to know what that agenda is? To live their lives and to not be attacked for it. That's it. It's freedom. They're not harming you. They're not harming your kids. They're not coming after your lifestyle. They're not shoving their lifestyle down your throat. They just want to exist. And that's really it. And again, thankfully, most people know this in this country. In fact, 2/3 of Americans, according to a recent PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll, said that they are against laws that would limit transgender rights. So there's some nuance in this poll. Now, the opposition includes majorities of every political ideology, from liberal to conservative, in every age group. Fewer than 3 in 10 people support state laws to prohibit gender-affirming care for minors or that criminalize providers of that care. So you have, again, about 70% of the country that's like, no, let them have care that's gender-affirming. Again, this breaks down pretty evenly among Democrats and Republicans. Among Republicans, 26% support bills that prohibit that care, while 70% of Republicans are opposed. So they said, yeah, okay, you're trans. Go ahead and get the care that you want. That's 70% of Republicans. 69% of Democrats also agree. So in this case, the Republicans are they're pretty evenly split. That you have, both Democrats and Republicans, majorities of them agreeing that yes, you shouldn't prohibit gender affirming care. Good. Now, Republican support for criminalizing, however, providing gender transition related care was higher at 38%. That's double what Democrats had said. So again, in general, twice as many Republicans do support the criminalization of gender-related care than Democrats. And gender-affirming care, by the way, is things like puberty blockers and hormones. And so now support for criminalization gets higher among Trump-supporting Republicans. 42% of people who supported former President Trump in the 2020 election said that they were in support of criminalization of that gender-affirming care. But overall, as I said, proposed laws like Florida's are super unpopular among the majority of Americans. In fact, only 28% of Americans overall support bills to bar transgender youth from competing on teams that align with their gender, while 2/3 oppose those bills. Opposition is consistent across the political spectrum, with 2/3 of Democrats, Republicans, and independents all in agreement. People who know somebody is transgender are 5 points more likely to oppose these efforts than people who does not. So, look, if you know a trans person, you realize that they're not out to harm you. They're not out to hurt your livelihood. They're not out to harm your family. Again, you will just find out that they're just there to live their lives. That's all they want. That's all they want. Why don't we leave them alone? Why don't we just let them do what they're going to do? Allow them to live their lives the way they want to live their lives. And this whole thing, again, Florida, what the fuck? Just because you're shaped like a dick doesn't mean you need to act like a dick. Okay, to the people that live there. All right, these are children. These are kids. These are kids that should not be subject to genital examinations because they're transgender. It's ridiculous. And so Florida, I don't have much hope for Florida. I mean, if Ron DeSantis does veto this, and I don't know what's going to happen, but he would get credit in my book if he does. I hope he does the right thing and actually opts on the side of actual freedom, which is to let these kids live their own lives, free of this kind of just absolute harassment. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.